most of you should already be aware about this, but I would like to highlight this again. So what basically are project level indicators? I will go into this also in the next slides a little bit more. They are based on the so-called non-mature indicators that have been introduced in the CBA3 guideline, or basically, let's say, or better to say, the section non-mature indicators has been included in one of the latest versions of the CBA guideline that has been submitted to the European Commission. And they are applied where the ENTSO-E is not yet able to perform the assessment on a pan-European wide level. So basically saying either we don't have the methodology at hand right now formulated and written down in the CBA guideline or the implementation guideline, or on the other hand side, it can also be that we have already a methodology at hand, but we are not yet capable at ENTSO-E level to perform it in the TYNDP for all of the projects on a centralized level. This can be either due to we are not having the tools at hand in ENTSO-E for the moment, or the other possibility could be that the methodologies that we have in mind are taking way too much time to be implemented in this tight framework of the TYNDP. So these are basically the what's about the indicators. I will go into this in the next slide a little bit more. Then the how, they are to be submitted by the project promoters. And this is exactly why we are giving this call today, to offer you the possibility to ask questions on the project level indicators, also maybe a little bit related to the methodologies that you already have in mind. And we were also asking you to submit some kind of a first view of your possible methodologies to ENTSO-E to review them until the 1st of April this year. So this already happened, and we received some feedback from some of the project promoters, which we are currently still reviewing, and then directly contacting the project promoters back if the methodologies need to be extended a little bit, or if it's in line with what we have in mind and written down in the implementation guidelines. Basically, as already said, they are based on the guidance given in the CBA guideline and of course also in the implementation guidelines, because in the implementation guidelines for this TYNDP we have also added some new concepts, let's say, maybe not really methodologies, but concepts that are also to be considered in the CBA, in the TYNDP. But basically for the project level indicators, main source is of course the CBA guideline, and also for two of the project level indicators we have detailed examples in the implementation guidelines, so therefore both documents are relevant for the project level indicators. And the final submission needs to be taking place until the 30th of June this year. And after that, we will then go at ENTSO-E level for the review of the project level indicators and going back into contact to the project promoters. But for the timeline, I have an extra slide in the end of this call. So I would like to ask you to wait for a detailed timeline until the end of the call. So that's a short overview about the project level indicators. And now, as said already, I will give you a little bit more insight in what the project level indicators are really, and what is the concept about this. Why have we introduced this? So what you see now here is the overview about all of the indicators and costs, and of course the residual impacts of the CBA 3 guideline. So we are having indicators B1 to B9, and basically the project level indicators are located more at the bottom of this list here. So until up to the B6 indicator, we are within the frame of the indicators that can be assessed by ENTSO-E on a centralized level, and then with the more, let's say, complex indicators, because of the modeling, of course, where often some kind of detailed grid modeling needs to be taken place, or also more advanced dynamical modeling should be used to carry out some of these indicators. We have not yet the methodology at hand to perform the calculations at ENTSO-E level within the TYNDP, of course, in this tight framework, or for the B9 indicator, where we have the methodology at hand, but not the tool at ENTSO-E level to perform it for all of the projects. So the project level indicators that we are talking to about is the B71, B81, B82, and the B9 indicators. And I will now explain a little bit more how it came to this, what I've already mentioned several times today. We're having what I call now standard CBA indicators, which are to be seen as B1 to B6 indicator, at least, and they need to fulfill mainly two main requirements. The first requirement is they need to have a detailed methodology available, so that we need to have a methodology written down in the CBA guideline itself. There needs to be a detailed methodology, and then we need to have transferred this general concept from the CBA guideline to the implementation guideline with kind of a step-by-step approach where everyone can follow this methodology, and then it's clear how to perform this this assessment of this kind of indicator. So we need to have a detailed methodology at hand, and we need to be able to perform these indicator calculations at ENTSO-E level within the TYNDP framework. And also, as already said, the TYNDP has kind of a tight timeline. So therefore, some of the indicators that would take for one simulation round, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and weeks of preparation, they are simply yet not possible to be included in the TYNDP process. So these are the two requirements that the standard indicators should fulfill, and the standard indicators that we are applying in the TYNDP this time are basically the same as in the past TYNDP, so mainly nothing new happened here. But for the project level indicators, we are going the approach that we are describing it today. So then we have the non-mature indicators, which is, let's say, new category, while it is not really a category because we should only have categories with mature indicators. But we have introduced this concept and this section in the CBA guideline, calling them non-mature indicators. These are basically all of the indicators where the methodology is not yet that mature that we feel comfortable to put it in the CBA guideline as a standard methodology, and where we are not yet able to perform the calculations based on these methodologies. And you will realize already now that this is not the same list of indicators as the project level indicators, because we have some of these non-mature indicators that are a little bit more mature, and for these we then allow for project level indicators. And we have some of the project level indicators that are not really mature, and we have just an idea written down into the CBA guideline, and where we do not allow for the moment to perform project level indicator calculations in the TYNDP, because also for the project level indicators, it is important to have kind of a harmonization between the different project promoters that are submitting project level indicators. So they all need to be based on the same methodology and some kind of a guidance, so that in the end, although not performed with the same tools, and maybe also not 100% with the same methodology, but they need to be somehow to be comparable, and therefore we need to have some kind of a methodology at hand at ENTSO-E level to give it out to the project promoter so they can follow the guidance. And then after review of ENTSO-E of these methodologies, we will then put them into the CBA, into the TYNDP, or can say they are not in line with what we at ENTSO-E had in mind with the project level indicators, and then we will give this kind of disclaimer in the project sheets afterwards in the TYNDP. And then we have the project level indicators, which is kind of a merging of a standard indicator and non-mature indicator. While you see we're having transformed or allowed for the project level indicators in the TYNDP 2022, the B71, the B81, the B82, and the B9 indicator. And as already said, for these indicators, we're already having some kind of a methodology. Although for the B81 and B82, we not yet have a detailed methodology. Oh, wait, for the B81, we have a more or less detailed methodology, but we don't have the tool at ENTSO-E level to perform it for all of the projects. And the same applies for the B9 indicator, where we have a quite detailed methodology, which is based on redispatch calculations, of course. But we at ENTSO-E level not yet have in the TYNDP the tool at hand to perform detailed redispatch calculations for all of the projects. So that's why we have put in the B9 indicator as a project level indicator. And for the B71, we have kind of a detailed idea about the methodology, but also here we are not capable at ENTSO-E level to perform this within the framework of the TYNDP. So, and with this overview, of course, we are focusing today on the project level indicators, which are B71, B81, B82, and B9. And I think we are giving a general concept of the project level indicators. Again, I would like to highlight here what is the most important things. So first of all, you're all here in the call because you're interested into submitting project level indicators. And I will say, or I will highlight to you that you can submit project level indicators. You're not obliged to. So the project level indicators are not like the standard indicators that will be performed for all of the projects. So you can decide for adding project level indicators to the TYNDP or not. So you don't have to. That's very important to know, because you can also decide to just add one of the project level indicators. And the most important thing here is that when you think that a project level indicators might give additional benefit or one of the main benefits to your project, then of course you're invited to submit a project level indicator to the TYNDP. But if you consider that some of the project level indicators might not be that important for your project, then I would also ask you to maybe reconsider if you really would like to submit it to the TYNDP, because first of all, you don't have to. And second, this is all then review work for ENTSO-E, and we need to go into contact back to you and figuring out if this indicator is following the methodology that is drafted in the implementation guideline and the CBA guideline. So this is kind of a big work additionally for each of the project level indicators. And here I just would like to be pragmatic to say, if it's just giving a little benefit, or if you don't see in advance that it will bring a benefit at all, then maybe please reconsider not to submitting that specific project level indicator. And on the other hand side, of course, in the end, for the PCI process, it's the European Commission process, and therefore also the European Commission will decide whether to consider a project level indicator or not. So in the end, we can say that project level indicators can be submitted to the TYNDP, but in the end, it's up to the European Commission to decide whether to use it for the PCI process or not. And then the third bullet that I'm referring to right now is that the methodologies need to be submitted in compliant with the CBA implementation guidelines. And of course, we should have written here also with the CBA guideline, but basically in the implementation guideline, it is said that it should also consider the CBA guideline. So But these are the two documents that you need to refer to when you are going to submit project level indicators, because there we have some guidance given for each of the indicators, and there are some of the requirements that we will also lay down right now here today in this call, but they are also already written in the implementation guideline and in the CBA guideline, like for example, the minimum requirements that need to be met for each of the project level indicators. And then, of course, as this is more or less a free format process, we need to have some reference to the official documents like the implementation guideline and the CBA guideline, and therefore the project promoter need to make a proof of the compliance with these two documents. So, and I would like to highlight, from the experience that we had with the project level indicators in the TYNDP 2020 process, that a general study is not seen as to being sufficient for making this proof of the compliance. You really need to have the implementation guideline and CBA guideline at hand, and then making in the best way a step-by-step proof of the compliance of each of the steps and requirements as laid down in the CBA guideline and the implementation guidelines. And finally, which should be obvious, but sometimes we also have received already proof for the compliance or methodologies submitted in not English languages. So the methodologies submitted to ENTSO-E showing the proof of the compliance need to be or must be in English language, because we cannot ensure that we have experts at hand that can make the review of the indicators in each of the possible languages that might come in here. So please consider then to translate your methodologies if you have already something into English language, because otherwise we cannot accept these indicators. That is then would be the result if you don't submit it in English language. And with that, I would like to go to the first of the project level indicators, which is the B71, the balancing energy exchange. And here I would like to give to Belen making the presenter.
Okay. Hello, good morning.
Hi, Belen. So just for you, for feedback, we can hear you and can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let's just start then with the B71 indicator, balancing energy exchange. So the basic principle here of the balancing services indicator is that increasing cross-border capacity could lead to a reduction in balancing energy cost. So that these projects with cross-border impact can play a key role in the integration of non-dispatchable energy generation, as they could balance fluctuations across larger geographic areas. So the scope here is to quantify the reduction in balancing cost. And when talking about balancing energy, we are referring to products such as replacement reserve, manual frequency regulation reserve, and automatic frequency regulation reserve. Although CBA guidelines predicts monetary results, the value that project promoters submit will be converting into a qualitative value, and this will be described afterwards. So as previously said, the objective here is to quantify the reduction in balancing cost. And how is this done? Through a methodology that has been divided into 6 different steps. So the first step, it is called common platform. And in the future, it is assumed that there will be platforms to exchange balancing energy products such as Terre, Marie, Picasso. Maybe you are know some of them, and some of them are currently operating. And well, this first step consists of extracting data of exchange balancing energy products from these balancing platforms if they are available. But if they are not available, historical data can be used instead. So the second step consists of assessing the balancing needs, but these needs are not easy to forecast as generation and consumption mix are evolving. So one option proposed within the third CBA guideline consists of using historical balancing needs, assuming that they will apply in the future as well. For the third step, we have to determine the available hourly cross-border capacity after market closure between control areas, which can be used to exchange balancing energy in both directions and both with and without the project. So for this assessment, the output from the TYNDP market simulations should be used. In the fourth step, the opportunity for imbalance netting between control areas is determined. In situations where imbalance netting requires flows in the same direction as market flows, there is need for available cross-border capacity. So the volume of imbalance netting between control areas is calculated as the minimum of total balancing needs in each control area whenever the type of balancing needs is not the same in both control areas, of course, and those needs are not zero. The following step consists of computing the balancing bid offers, and for such task, the guidelines give four different proposals with increasing levels of complexity. So the first proposal consists of using the seasonal average balancing bid prices from historical data. The second proposal consists of using the hourly national historical data. The third one consists of using savings, historical balancing bid price savings exchange through a balancing platform. And the last one, and the more complex one, consists of determining hourly national balancing bid price curves using forecast data that reflects changes to generation mix. And finally, the last step consists of computing the balancing cost savings, calculated as the difference of the balancing cost with and without the project. And this will give the result of this B81 indicator in a monetary manner. So, but as previously said, in the guidelines, it is established that this indicator is addressed in a qualitative manner, so that three basic units of measure are used. The first one, 0, meaning no change, that is the project has no impact on the balancing energy exchanges indicator. 1+, meaning that there is a small to moderate improvement, meaning that the project has only a small impact on the balancing energy exchanges indicator. And the third unit is double plus, meaning a significant improvement, that is the project has a large impact on the balancing energy exchanges indicator. And how are these qualitative values obtained from the monetary results provided by the project promoters? Okay, in this slide, the conversion from the monetary values to the qualitative units are given. So for results below 1.4 million euros, the unit measure will be 0. For values between 1.4 and 14 million euros, the unit indicator will be 1+, and values above 14 million euros will give a double plus in the project to the project. And finally, in this slide, we wanted to give you some examples from the last TYNDP exercise where these indicators were accepted or rejected, depending on, in the case of accepted, we proved that the project promoter proved that the methodology applied were compliant with CBA, with the third CBA guideline. And for example, there were some cases where the methodology were rejected due to were not compliant with the CBA guideline, or the values submitted were not monetized at requested, so that we couldn't give this qualitative value at the end in the TYNDP process. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Belen. This indicator, by the way, is a good example, what I have mentioned earlier, where you should give a step-by-step proof of the compliance. So we're having these steps for this indicator that were now referred to as ABC in the slides, and so on. But please, when you consider sending this indicator, submitting this indicator to the TYNDP, then please consider to think about also making the proof for each of the steps. So that will then, of course, ease the work for us, because we have a direct link to each of the steps, and then we can see better how you have achieved the compliance with the guidelines so far. And with that being said, I would like to hand over to Philip for the B81 indicator. And I don't know if you have the screen power now, or yeah, seems like. Okay, so go ahead, Philip, please.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Hello, everyone. So can you see the presentation that I have shared with you?
I can see it, yes.
Okay, so that's the correct screen. Perfect. Yeah. So frequency stability. So how here I would like just to give you a bit of background. So how can we influence the power system frequency? So that's mainly, so we can I mean, we can just use here the famous swing equation just to show how the power system frequency interacts with the system. And there are mainly basically let's say three parts that we can influence when we want to stabilize the frequency. So the first part is load shedding. So we can reduce load in under frequency situations, but we can also reduce power with governor control to prevent over frequency events. And then there's also one other let's say important criteria that influence the power system frequency. It's inertia. So these are basically the things that we can use to stabilize the frequency. So at the end, the minimum requirements is then is to prove that the project stabilized the power system frequency and also can damp potentially power system oscillations. So it's very hard to monetize these benefits. That's why we are more than we go for indicators that can measure these stability criteria. And this is basically then how it's basically drafted in the current methodology in the CBA. So it's mainly the nadir and the Rockoff where we need to calculate by running dynamic simulations. So at the end here, you can just see on the right figure the rate of change of frequency, which is namely the Rockoff, and we can basically measure this rate with and without a project. And if we see that there is a change to improvement, then this project stabilize basically the power system. And also the same applies with the nadir, which is then basically the maximum frequency deviation we see in the power system. So that's mainly the indicators that we would like to see. And having said already that these calculations need to be run by dynamic simulations, and yeah, so basically that's all from my side. If maybe Niels can also add here some more information, but from my side, that's all.
Thank you, Philip, for this short overview about this indicator. So basically, as Philip already said, this is we would like to see the Rokov and the nadir for the assessment of this indicator. So if you can deliver this with detailed dynamical studies, then you're welcome to send it to us. But what we had in mind for breaking it down a little bit to the TYNDP process, maybe also with perspective to applying it in the future as a standard indicator, was to use a single bus model here for calculating the frequency stability. And this is some yeah, let's say breakdown or simplification that we would allow also here for you by when you would like to calculate this indicator. Nonetheless, the basis for this, or the input for this single bus methodology or model, and also for detailed dynamic studies, should be on the hourly basis for the calculation of a year-round simulation. And yeah, the power generation should be at least per technology type and the demand per country. So these are the minimum requirements that we would like to see here for the calculation of this indicator. And with that, I would like to jump to the next indicator. I think it's up to Saga to do the presentation.
I will make sure to share the right screen. So
it's about the B82 indicator, the Blackstart Services. So Saga, please.
Yeah, you can see it now?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Nils. So the next indicator we have here is, as Nils said, the Blackstart service. So the Blackstart Services is something that is usually contracted or imposed by TSOs to ensure that there is a minimum level of capacity to re-energize the power system after the event of a blackout. So it's needed in the system to take the system back from blackout state to normal state. Certain grid projects could help with a few things that we have listed in the implementation guideline and the CBA guideline. So a few of the things they can help with is either to reduce the need of the total required volume of Blackstart capacity, and or it can also enable pathways for contracting more price efficient units, so units with lower fuel costs or cleaner energy. It could also help to avoid investment costs in new Blackstart services. So if you have power plants that are now currently providing Blackstart services, but may be taken out of operation, your project could help here and avoid investment costs. So these 3 points are listed in the implementation guideline right now, and this is something that could help potentially reduce the overall system cost and contribute to an overall welfare in other markets. We have a few minimum requirements that is important for you to show in the methodologies you submit to us. So the requirements we have listed is that you will need to demonstrate what the Blackstart needs are today and the Blackstart units that are needed today. Or I should probably say for the time horizon where the project is foreseen to be realized, so that we can compare from a reference case what it would be with and without your project there, and how the project is helping with these points. You could show the total volume of Blackstart units and the required localization. What could also be important to highlight is that there could be different local regulations. So the ability to restart the system after a blackout event is covered also in the network code and emergency and restoration, the network code, but also different member states can have different local regulations that your project might be helpful with to fulfill. It's also a requirement that you submit some sort of calculations of the avoidance of investment costs, if that's what you are proposing that your project can help with. So show us what the cost would have been to procure a new Blackstart service and how your project can help with this. And also, if you want to show the welfare that it could create by liberating Blackstart units in other markets, such as the wholesale market or the balancing market, you need to show calculations of this. I don't have any examples. We only have like one previous example and one previous methodology submitted for this, I think, and it's a very specific one because it's for the Baltic countries or countries that are not already synchronized with Central Europe. So I don't have an example to show here, but yeah, I think this will be it for this indicator if Nils doesn't have anything he wants to add as well.
Okay, thank you, Saga, for this overview about this indicator. This is basically one of the indicators where we have more or less an idea in our head, and where we would like to allow you to submit your methodologies, of course, in the frame of what has been presented here, and also by considering the CBA guideline and the implementation guidelines. So, but I think that's it then for the overview about this indicator. And then I will do the presentation for the B9 indicator. I hope you can see my indicator right now.
Yes.
Not my indicator, my screen.
Yeah.
And it's the B9 indicator, reduction of necessary reserves for redispatch power plants. So only where possible in brackets. The basic idea about this indicator is, after a redispatch calculation, to make a link between the reduction of the redispatch power to a possible reduction in redispatch power plants or reserve power plants, or basically which would be then peaking units, so peaking power plants. So that's the basic idea, to make a direct link between the redispatch power and the amount of needed peaking units. And next slide. Yes, so minimum requirements for this indicator, because we have received in the past some methodologies that wanted to get or submit the assessment of the B9 indicator to the TYNDP, and we have received methodologies that were not relying on redispatch calculations. But this is one of the main requirements here for this indicator, because as the indicator already tells by the name, it's the reduction of necessary reserves for redispatch power plants. So you need to have a redispatch calculation to assess this indicator. It's really one of the main requirements for this indicator. So as soon as there are no detailed redispatch calculations involved, we cannot accept this indicator as being a project level indicator for the TYNDP. And we have a detailed description of redispatch calculations within the implementation guidelines. So if you're not yet familiar with that, I would like to highlight it to you and ask you to have a look at the implementation guideline. It's quite of a lengthy section. In the TYNDP 2020, we had a separate document of this for the redispatch calculations. Now we have merged it in the implementation guidelines so that everything is in one document, but please have a look at this section when you are going to submit the B9 indicator, because here we have in quite details the requirement laid down for the redispatch calculations. We also have, for the redispatch calculations, set up a simple test case, like a 6-node model, for which we have done the redispatch calculation as a test case in the TYNDP 2020 for all those who would like to submit redispatch calculations to the TYNDP. It's also written down in this implementation guideline. Please also have a look at this one, and then if you have still some questions on that, please feel free to contact us. But this is kind of a requirement that we need to perform, that you need to perform for applying for redispatch calculations, and also for the B9 indicator, which needs to be built up on redispatch calculations. And of course, as already said today, a detailed description of the methodology and the compliance with the implementation guideline, and where needed also with the CBA guideline. And now I would like to jump in the basic overview about this indicator. So this is taken from the general need for redispatch calculations. You need to perform as a first step market simulations for determining the cost optimal redispatch power dispatch of the power plants. And simulation step number 2 would be performing load flow calculations based on the outcome of the dispatch from step 1. And then at a final step, you need to perform, based on these load flow calculations, the redispatch calculations, where basically the dispatch is changed based on possible congestions within the grid. And when you have performed these 3 steps, then in the end you have an updated dispatch, so the so-called redispatch, obviously. And with that, you can then perform the calculations for this B9 indicator, which is basically calculating the power, the redispatch power with and without the project for each year. And what you are going to see here is then the maximum redispatch power across the year. So you are going to the simulation with the project, figuring out what is the maximum redispatch power in this simulation, and then you go without the project, also going to the time series, the results of the redispatch calculations, seeing what is the maximum redispatch power for this calculation. And then in this simple example, which has nothing to do with reality, by the way, it's just coming out of my head. So just some numbers for showing you what is this all about. So for example, we're having the redispatch power with a project, which is 16,000 megawatt. And we have the redispatch power without, which is 18,000 megawatt. And both of them can appear in different hours. So it's really just the maximum power across the year. And the indicator basically is then just simply calculated by the difference of both of these. So 18,000 minus 16,000 is then 2,000. And this would then be the redispatch power that can be seen as a reduction of the redispatch power plants that are needed to be capable to cover the maximum redispatch power across the year. And the monetization then is something that you need to also to figure out if you have some kind of such mechanisms within your country, because I know it from the German country that there is such kind of a mechanism, and the monetization of such kind of allocated redispatch power plants is like 20,000 euro per megawatt. And if you have such kind of a number, which might vary for your country, then you can simply multiply this factor by the calculated redispatch power and get then the monetized value of this B9 indicator. So that's basically the main idea about this indicator. And with that, we are already through with all of the indicator presentations. And I would like to go now to the next slide, which is a short slide for giving you an overview about how to treat within this whole framework the project level indicators for storage projects, because they are somehow or sometimes a little bit special, let's say, to be treated within this whole framework. First to be said, the indicators B71, B82, and B9 can be applied the same way as for the other indicators, just as shown, the same way as for transmission projects. So this is nothing new. This is just doing the same thing that we have just explained. But additionally, we have some kind of a of an indicator introduced in the CBA guideline 3, which is highlighted under the B7 indicator for the storage projects, and this indicator can be used for assessing the flexibility for storage projects. And this is the, I would say, already well-known table for storage projects, which has already been submitted also by some of the project promoters as indicator for storage projects. And this table can also be used here for assessing the flexibility for storage projects. And that's basically the overview for storage projects. And with that, I would like to hand over to Leah for giving an overview about how to submit the project level indicators and what needs to be considered here. So Leah, please.
Yes, thank you, Niels. You will be informed very quickly. We will share with you a link that will allow you to submit concretely the PLIs. So as you are probably aware, we have this project platform that you have used to submit your project in the TUNDP back in September, October of last year. So you will have to connect to the same platform. Currently, if you go there, you will not see PLIs, but by the end of the month, you will see appear a new section where you will be able to select the PLI that you want to submit and to enter all the data that is requested. So we just ask you to be like just a little patient. I expect that at the latest by end of April, we will be able to open this part of the platform to you to give you access. And of course, you will be informed by email. I understand that it's, of course, easier for you if you know exactly what you have to submit. So I have prepared here an overview of the main information that we will request in the online form. And I saw already a question in Slido about that, asking whether there will be a template for submission. So yes, there will be templates, one template per PLI, and these are the main fields. So for a start, we ask first about how the study complies with the CBA3 guideline. So that's just a short explanation so that we can assess. And this will be published in the project sheets. Then you have, of course, need to specify for which scenario or scenarios the PLI have been calculated. So there are different options. You can either use the TUNDP 2022 scenarios, and in that case, there are 4 scenarios available. So National Trends 2030 and National Trends 2040, and Distributed Energy 2030 and Distributed Energy 2040. So these are the 4 scenarios available to you if you want to use the TUNDP 2022 scenarios. There are no obligation to use a scenario or another, or to compute PLIs in all 4 scenarios. You can compute them and submit them for only one. So, for example, you could submit a PLI only for NT 2030 or only for NT 2040 if you want to. There is no, no scenario is an obligation. So that's a change compared to the last TUNDP. Then in case you would like to use other scenarios than the TUNDP scenario, so this is allowed. And then you have the option to submit one value in 2030 and or one value in the 2040. And of course, we'll ask for information about what scenario you are using. And obviously, this is published also in the project sheet. Next, we also ask about any other assumption that you have used beyond the scenario, if there is any. We ask about who performed the study and when. And all of this is made public. What is not made public is the study itself. So you have to upload the study. It has to be in English so that we can assess your PLIs, but we are not publishing the study. And you have also to provide a description of the study's assumptions and the data, and to upload the data when needed. But this is not published as well. And finally, for the B9 indicator only, Niels mentioned that the last step in the methodology is to monetize this indicator. So you have also to provide the monetization factor and an explanation about where this factor comes from. And this is also made public. So when later on this month we share with you the template to submit PLIs, you can expect to find all those fields with a few additional checkboxes just to certify, for example, that the PLIs comply with CBS3 and that the PLIs are submitted jointly by all promoters of the project in the case where there are more than one promoter. But if you already start doing your computations, you can already start providing all this data, and then you will be able to just fill in the form well in advance. So I think that's all for me, and I give the floor back to Niels.
Yes, thank you, Leah, for this short overview about what needs to be done. I think, yeah, okay. So now you should be able to see my screen again. Yeah, this is almost, yeah, well, this is the last slide of this call. The timeline for the project level indicators in the TYNDP 2022. So until the 1st of April, we have given the project promoters the possibility to submit their methodologies. We have already received some, and we are still in kind of a what we call here pre-review, because this is takes place before of the official process. This will start when we will send out the call for project level indicators. So this is just to ensure or to give you the possibility to submit your methodologies and to have another step in the process to try to ensure that the methodologies that we will then finally receive by the project promoters are already in line with the CBA guidelines. Then we are having this workshop today, and until 30th of June, so end of June, we will have the final submission for the project level indicators. This is the date that you need to consider and to meet, because after that, then we will go at ENTSO-E level for the review of the methodologies submitted by the project promoters. And during this time, if necessary, and I think so that it might be necessary, this speaks my experience from the last process, there are always some things to need to be clarified, or some additional information needs to be sent by the project promoter. And this is then the time when ENTSO-E will go into direct contact with you, with each of the project promoters separately, and clarifying all of the open issues, let's say. And this process is foreseen to be take place until at latest within September. So we are having the whole July and August, although August is known as the holiday month, but nonetheless, I think from project promoter side, there will always also someone will be there for being contacted. And at ENTSO-E level, there's also, I would say, always someone who can carry on this work also in August. So we have the July, we have the August for this clarifications, and then I would say the beginning of September, then everything should be made clear, and finalized, so that the final decision of ENTSO-E will then come somewhere in September for if we let's say accept the project level or approve the project level indicator or not. And what we have done in the past TYNDP, which we will also going to do in this TYNDP, is although we are not let's say accepting the project level indicators, it will also appear in the project sheet, but just with a disclaimer from ENTSO-E that our review was not positive on this indicator due to some reasons. And then in October, the publication of the TYNDP ENTSO-E assessment of the compliance of the submitted project level indicators. So there we will then inform everyone about our assessment of the project level indicators. And with that being said, I would like to thank you all for your attendees, for being here in the call and listening what we had to say. And I would like to ask you now to ask your questions via the Slido. And I don't know, maybe Saga, are you going to show your screen now and we're going through the questions?
Yeah, I think you should be able to see my screen now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay.
Least, yeah.
Yeah. So we have first, it's not really a question, it's from John, and he says it would be great if we can share the presentation with the participants, and this of course we will do. We have also recorded this webinar, so it will all be shared. Yep, then we have the question from Stefan that Leah explained that there will be a sort of template where you can fill out the required information. Jody is wondering which scenarios should the non-mature be calculated. So for this, as we also have explained, there is no should do. You can choose for yourself, as Leah explained, which scenarios you have available.
Yeah. Just maybe one thing we can specify regarding that is that, of course, we do not know yet which scenarios will be considered in the PCI process. This is a decision from the European Commission. So we cannot recommend to use one scenario or another. But if you look at the implementation guideline and especially a table, I can't remember on which page, but that says which indicators are computed for which scenario, you will see that we are performing network computations only for one scenario, because these are very, they take a lot of resources and effort, so we can only do them for one scenario, and this scenario is NT 2030. So just information.
This table you were referring to can be found on page 10 of the 11 on the implementation guidelines.
Perfect.
And just for this question, clarification, it was written here non-mature PLI. For the terminology, we don't have non-mature PLI. So some of the non-mature indicators from the CBA guideline have been transferred to PLIs. So they are used as, because they are non-mature and we cannot perform the calculations at ENTSO-E level, we have decided to allow the project promoters to do this in the TYNDP, and those indicators are then project level indicators because they are just calculated on single project level. There comes the name from. So just for clarification.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, and I believe Leah just answered this other question as well from Stefan. No, we don't know yet which scenario will be used for the PCI process. So Peter, on the BA2, why don't we give a monetized value to the socioeconomic damage in case of blackout? If I understand the question correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, my colleagues, but this would not be associated with the B8 indicator, because the B82 indicator is what has happened after the blackout. So the benefit we would see to prevent the blackout would be seen in any of the other indicators. I think that is how I understood the question.
Yes,
if you want to, yeah.
That is basically the idea that we had with this indicator right here, because avoiding the blackout is already covered within the adequacy indicator, basically, and maybe also already within the B7 indicator to some extent. And therefore, we are saying that for the B82 indicator, there is not any, or there might be additional benefit coming from our monetized benefit, but this is something that we have not yet drafted down in the implementation guideline or CBA guideline. But if this is the last step of your methodology, let's say to calculate this in a monetized value, I would ask you to also submit it, and then we can make a review of this indicator and also of the monetization, and we can see if we then maybe can consider this also for the next update of the CBA guideline, where of course also the B82 indicator, the Blackstart indicator, is some topic that we will let's say rediscuss in the next update of the CBA guidelines. So anything that you have as an idea here how this can be handled might also help for the update of the CBA guideline.
All right, we have a question from Jody. Given the expected large increase in variable renewables, balancing will be increasingly important. Is it planned to review the qualitative nature of B71?
Yes, I think. Well, sorry, let's go. Yeah.
Go ahead if you.
Well, the idea is to continue further our investigations in this indicator in order to improve them in the future CBA editions. So the answer will be yes.
Yes, exactly. This is also what I wanted to say here. Basically, it is like all of the indicators that we are referring to right now here, except of the B9 indicator, are listed under the non-mature indicators, which means they are not yet mature. So therefore, of course, we at ENTSO-E are going to improve these kind of indicators for the next updates of the CBA methodology. But of course, there's also a reason why they are still called as non-mature indicators, because for those indicators, it's not always that easy to find a methodology that can be used inside the TY-NDP process. But of course, we are going to work on these kind of indicators as well in the future.
Then we have another question from Stefan. The euro, okay, so maybe the money factor of the B9 can be problematic for publication. Can we restrict publication here?
I'm not yet aware about how exactly we will present the outcome of these indicators, but for this indicator, I would propose then to just simply give the quantitative value in megawatts as explained in this methodology, and the monetized value. And if you would like to give the monetized value, then just simply leave this out, and then we will just give the quantitative value of this indicator. So yes, I would say you can restrict the publication here by just not submitting it then. Or you can submit it and put in a disclaimer that it should not be published. Then we will also consider this.
We have a question from Fernando. To calculate some project level indicators, we need the market results with and without the project. When will the results be accessible for project promoters? I'm not sure if Leah has a deadline in her or a timeline in her head and can answer this.
I'm not sure I understand the question. What market results?
Well, I think he's referring with and without the project.
Yeah, I think, for example, for the B9 indicator where I've presented that you need to have the market output after market simulation. So you need to have the dispatch after the market simulation with the project and without the project. And this information needs to be considered for calculation of the B9 indicator as input for the load flow calculations and then redispatch calculations. So I see the point, but I don't know if we will publish also the assessment for each of the projects, because I don't know. Let's say I don't know if this will be published. So for the base case simulation, I know that the market results are already available, but for the others, I don't know. But maybe we can get into contact here with Fernando on that point.
Yeah.
Or maybe Leah or Saga, can you keep this in mind, and then we figure out how we will
yes, I think
manage this.
All of the questions are saved, so we could reach out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Stefan, do we already have an okay, so this has already been, I will remove this. And can we take year factor from B9 also from another country since it is published?
Basically, or what we also have drafted down in the implementation guideline or the CBA guideline, I'm not sure which one, but there's the requirement that the B9 indicator just can be applied when in this specific country there's such kind of a mechanism included in reality in this country, that such kind of mechanism of allocating redispatch power plants. And if this takes place, then of course you can submit the B9 indicator. I don't know if it makes that much sense then to use a different value that does not apply for your country on this. So this is kind of a, I would say, shortcoming of this methodology, that it's not harmonized between all of the European countries. But at this first step, we are having allowed to apply this on a country-wise level. So I would say it makes no sense to publish here then or to apply different monetized values here.
All right.
But maybe just one thing to add. If you would like to show a range or the power in which this monetized value would be, then I think it can make sense to apply it here with a disclaimer then, of course.
Yeah. We have two questions from Jody. So the guidelines outline each country has a T&D, transmission and distribution, maybe prosumer and EV node, but we only have one demand time series. Can the demand be broken down by node? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. So the okay.
I think it was related to what I was showing on some of the slides, that the minimum requirement should be that the timelines should be on a per generation type, and the demand should be just one time series per country. I would say if you can do, then you can also break it down to a node-wise level for the calculations. But this is something that I think we don't have at ENTSO-E level. but I'm not 100% sure about this, but you're allowed to also do this because this will increase the resolution of the calculation. So basically it will increase the detail of the calculation, and this is of course allowed.
Maybe also add to complement. I think it's also needed because at the end, if you want to provide flexibility or let's say the benefit of flexibility, then you basically need to split that into that parts. Otherwise, you cannot show the benefits that could be unlocked by different demand side applications also. So I think at the end you need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
Also
I
details.
guess,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. This might be linked to the question before. Also details for battery and solar PV capacities installed in. My last two questions were data questions about the market modeling data. Okay, thank you for the clarification, Jody. In the procurement of each country and area, I am not sure if this was actually a question.
Yeah, I think Jody sent her question by email yesterday, so
Okay,
we'll look into it. I think this is about data available in the PMMDB, but I mean not the data itself, but the data. So we'll look into it and come back to you by email.
Perfect. Then we have a last question from George. B9, are there references for the monetization of the maximum redispatch value like the 20k euro per megawatt? Niels, this, I will hand over to you.
I don't exactly know what this, if I understand this question properly, but if it's about where the 20,000 euro per megawatt comes from, and if there's a reference, there is a reference from the German TSOs. They have applied this in the past TYNDP, and there's a reference, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it comes from the German regulator, which has used this kind of value to assess the impact of redispatch power plants.
All right. That was the last question we had for now.
Okay, so if no new question comes in, so I will start already to close this call. I don't know, within the call details, I think there were some email addresses that you can also use to contact us directly if you have some other open questions. And of course, when the email comes out for project promoters with a call for submitting their project level indicators, I would like to highlight again, you don't have to submit project level indicators, but of course you're invited to. So if you have something and if you see it's needed for your project to give the full picture of the benefits of the project, then of course you're free to submit your project level indicators here. And if you have any additional questions, then please just simply contact us. Otherwise, we will maybe contact you after the final submission of the project level indicators if we have some additional questions. And I would like to also highlight, you're also allowed to submit your project level indicators before the deadline is over. So then we will already start a little bit earlier with a review of the methodologies. And to all those who have already submitted some of the methodologies as for this pre-review process, we will get into contact very soon on these indicators to you, and then we can maybe already clarify before the final submission some of the open issues here. So, and with that, I see that no additional question has come in. I would like to thank you and would like to wish you then a nice Easter, maybe a longer weekend for most of us, and would like to say goodbye and see you in the next call then. And we're looking forward to receiving your proposals for the project level indicators. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.